So I am delighted to be here today with Johan Westerlund, the bassist and one of many vocalists for the incredible Moon Safari. Johan, thanks so much for taking this time to chat.
Thank you very much for having me.
I am super excited to talk about y'all's new album, Himlabacken Volume 2. And I guess the first question I think I have is, it's been quite a while since y'all's last album, and I expect probably longer than the fans expected. And I guess I wanted to ask, has this sort of 10-year gap been longer than you expected or anyone else in the band expected it to have been since the last album?
Most definitely. I don't think when we started writing songs for this album early in 2014, I don't think any of us would have imagined that it would take 10 years. Because, I mean, we released the first album in 2005, and then we had a double album in 2008, another album in 10, an EP at 12, and another album at 13, and two live albums in that period. And that's basically shorter than what it's taken to finish this one.
That is interesting to think about that. Yeah, y'all released all of your albums in a shorter period of time than it's been for the gap. I've kind of read online a few places that there were a lot of different reasons why it sort of took so long. Is that the case? It really wasn't one thing. It was kind of just a lot of small things that added up to kind of make it take so long.
Well, I mean, definitely the fact that we're all dads now, so we all have between us we have a bunch of kids, and that of course during different periods, different members have had toddlers basically, which has really, keeps you focused in the first couple of years. Definitely, I mean, it's a totally life-changing experience. So we've all gone through that. Simon had a couple of kids in 2014, and Pontus had one. And then when we all started having kids, it was that definitely changed the dynamics and sort of priorities for some.
Yeah, I have two small kids myself, and it sort of it eliminates a lot of the free time that you have, and the sort of time that you can put into certain things is you have to kind of focus on a specific thing, and so I definitely understand that. So that's interesting. I don't think I knew that Simon has had kids since 2014. Do you think that has impacted? Because Himlabacken Volume 2. My understanding is that that's the English translation is Heaven Hill, which y'all sing about a lot in the album, and it's a lot about being kids and kind of growing up and sort of the memories you have as a child. Do you think that impacted a lot of what y'all wrote about on Himlabacken Volume 1? Is maybe Simon having been a parent since 2014-ish?
Well, maybe not directly like that, because the lyric side is mostly Petter and myself. And none of us had kids then, but I think it was more. I remember I pitched that title to Petter, and he liked it. It sounded like a prog album, that Swedish title also, and Heaven Hill has sort of ring to it. And we just kind of. I mean, we've had that theme in songs before, like "The World's Best Dreamers" from Lover's End is basically a growing up type of similar vibe, but I would say, definitely that was sort of that was the end of our own childhoods in one way. Volume 1, we were around almost 30 then, I think. It was sort of when we started putting that together, and I think that was basically the end of our own childhoods, and we sort of knew we were going somewhere else. We sort of transitioning in a way, and some, of course, as you say, some of the members have started having kids, so that probably impacted in some way.
It does seem like that age, I don't know, nowadays at least around 30 or so is where I mean, obviously people have been working for quite a long time then and had their own jobs and their own lives and stuff, but it seems like that's the point where you sort of start to forget in a lot of ways maybe what it was like being a kid, and you try to kind of hang on to it. So that's interesting. That makes sense that was around the age when y'all started writing Himlabacken Volume 1. So I've noticed some of the songs on Himlabacken Volume 2, like Emma Come On, y'all have been performing those live for years now, like many years now. So I assume at least part of this album, I guess you said y'all started writing it around 2014. At least part of the album, I assume, has been written for quite a while. Is that the case?
Well, yeah, not in the format that they come out now, but Emma Come On was definitely one of those. It's so short that we haven't changed much of it. That was basically there's a part after the second chorus that we altered, but that was probably altered in 2016 or something, or 2015, I don't remember. The first time we played it live was on Cruise to the Edge, I think 2015. Yeah. So
yeah.
It's amazing that it's 8 years old already. It's crazy.
Do you
so
feel
that sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, the other songs came about one after the other into the finished format. We had Forever for You was almost done when we did Himlabacken Volume 1. It was supposed to be on that album, but we couldn't really get everything to lock together and feel cohesive. So what made sense later on, I think, was when we added. Well, you've heard the album, so I'm not gonna. I don't know if I'm spoiling things for other listeners now, or because they haven't heard it yet.
But I think we should go into it. I don't want to get too specific, but yeah, this isn't going to come out today or anything. It'll be a little bit in the future, but I think it'll be also interesting.
Well, there were elements of Volume 1 where we reused some stuff that made sense, that gave that song a chorus that was a melody from Volume 1. So we sort of took our time with some of the songs that have been around, but they haven't been finished. And Between the Devil and Me was one of the other songs that really had a totally different demo that we changed after Simon wanted to quit the band, and he actually quit the band for a brief period. And when he was going through a lot of stuff then, and we got together in the studio, and we had that demo, but it didn't feel, that we had totally different verses, totally different. There was totally different bridge, totally different setup of the song.
Did it feel as heavy then as it feels now? Was it heavy back then like it is now?
I mean, the only things that are left are basically the parts from after the last chorus, and also the chorus is structured the same way as it was from the beginning. There was totally different vibe to the rest of the song. There was didn't have the same flow. So that was sort of, we stripped that down to the core of the song, and then we started building it from there. And we just wrote really directly and with quite simple both melody and structure of the song to be able to, I don't know, it just made sense to make, because I wrote those lyrics while we were restructuring the song, and that was done in a day or two. I don't know, two sittings, 3 or 4 hours each, and then we sort of had all the lyrics, and we had sort of redone the song, and it made sense now. It had a real flow to the end. And
did y'all consider putting it on Himlabacken Volume 1? You said you couldn't really make it work at the time on the album.
That was from the first demo sessions that we did in early 2014 when we started working up the songs. So that was a totally different demo that turned in 2017, or 2018, 2017, turned into the song that it is today.
I see.
But then also all the songs during recording, we recorded the drums in 2019, and I recorded the bass during the fall of 2019. And we had, we're going back to why it's taken so long. We had 3 or 4 songs finished, mixed in February of 2020, I think, before we were going on Cruise to the Edge. And then sort of with the COVID, everything just sort of died. We didn't have that. We weren't going on the cruise, and nothing happened. And so we sort of the bottom fell out of the process. We were sort of gearing up to get it out before summer, the full album, get a single out before the cruise. We were and then we switched mixers. So we started working with just because we felt it needed something more, and we wanted to, because it had taken so long, so we felt like we have to get the recordings to a different level.
How did y'all get hooked up with Rich?
We met him on at Rossfest in 2017. He was there with Neil Moore's band, and I think he either saw our show or he saw us on the after party just singing something, and he came up and we had a chat then, and he said he really liked it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was great. That was a great contact to make there, and he seemed like a really nice guy as well, which he is. We've only met him physically like twice. But
yeah, I guess a lot of it was probably just done. I was curious if y'all spent any time at all. He's in California, I think. I was curious if y'all spent any time at all with him, or if it was. I assumed it was all over Zoom and email and stuff.
Oh yeah, it was emails. But I mean, I don't think it would have worked if we hadn't actually seen him at least once. And then in last year when we did Cruise to the Edge again, we met him there and could actually start talking about the music, and then we still had 3 or 4 songs to mix, so that was nice to get a sense of each other again and see what he felt about the music. And I think he's really happy with that. I really think he likes it, so that also makes a difference. If you know, he's happy with it, we're happy with it. That's the best thing, and hopefully we can work with him again, because he's really professional. We took 3 or 4 guys and we sent them 1980X, like the first track.
I was curious how you pronounced that. If you pronounced it 1980 something, or because I say 1980 something, but 1980X. I was curious what y'all said.
Well, you can call it Heaven Hill, I suppose.
Yeah.
We sent that around
sent
to
some of those around?
3 or 4 guys, and you can tell that the sharpness in the guitars, and he really knows what to focus on and to create that sort of professional mix, because he's been doing it for so long. It was a totally different league, so we figured it costs a bit more, but hey, we want to really put out a product that we're proud of, so it made sense to go with him, and it's totally worth every penny.
That's awesome. Yeah. You know, on the Cruise to the Edge, like we were talking about before we started the interview, I was there, and it was before y'all had announced who was mixing it, and I was in the room when y'all played Inside, when y'all played the Inside show. And I think there was like a guy that worked for the Cruise crew mixing for y'all doing the live audio. And I saw Rich walk in, and Rich like walked in and sort of just stood next to the board and watched y'all. And at the time I was curious. I was like, I wonder if he's here because he's which is why when I ran into y'all later, I asked about it. Because I saw him standing in the room listening to y'all, and I was like, oh, it's interesting. So I was super excited, to learn that Rich was, because he's legendary. Obviously, he's been working with, even people know him for Neil Morse, or he even mixed and mastered the recent Liquid Tension Experiment, but he's done hundreds or if not thousands of albums. And so like you said, he's super professional and knows his stuff. So I think it turned out just incredibly, it sounds incredibly good. Just incredible. I think it's y'all's best sounding album in many ways, but certainly in terms of the mix and the mastering, it's just very clear and crisp.
Yeah, for sure. And that's also has a lot to do with Mikael Israelsson, our new drummer. He's also a co-producer, sound guy. He really knows a lot about that side of it. So I think what we actually delivered to the mixer in this time, Rich Mouser, was totally different from what we've delivered in the past.
Oh, interesting.
So I think that also makes, Jonas Reingold from the Flower Kings, I remember we sent him, he mixed a couple of things for us. Skellefteå Serenade and Himlabacken Volume 1. I just remember I called him up and asked him how I should record a bass thing. And he was like, well, shit in, shit out. So if you don't, you can't do too much with it if it's not done properly at the recording stage, and if it's not, So I think that we delivered a better product and we used a better guy Jonas is great also, but he's not at the level, of course, as Rich. I don't think he would have mind me saying that. They're 2 different, characters.
Sure. Yeah, totally. You talked about Forever for You, or like you mentioned, I've had a copy of the review album, which I've listened to quite a bit, a lot. Forever for You. I think I love all the tracks on the album. We can kind of talk about a few of them maybe, but Forever for You, I think it's probably amongst the best y'all have ever written across any of your albums. Both in terms of the word, the lyrics, and the music, and then also just how it sounds. Your bass work on that track is just perfect. I mean, it's perfect. It's perfect in your playing, but also it's so smooth, and you can hear it sit in the mix. You can hear it the whole time. It's like perfectly clear, but it's never overpowering.
I play that one with my fingers, and all the other tracks with.
That's interesting. That makes sense now that you say that, because it just sounds so smooth.
It sounds mellower.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It sounds awesome. I mean, and then the saxophone solo, which is y'all had mentioned that on Facebook, but it's still hearing it. It's just kind of a surprise when it happens.
Yeah.
And then of course, like, it leads into this bridge, which I call it a bridge. I don't know. It's sort of like the melody and harmonies that it sort of leads into about halfway through the song is something that really only you guys can do. I think that's why one of the reasons I like the track so much is it's something that you really can't hear. No one else is really capable of doing that in the way you guys are on that track specifically.
Right. Yeah, that's an issue. I really agree that has that you can sort of rest in the flow of the song, and that is very natural. It's also, I think the one track that we spent the least time focusing on details in how we played. We sort of let it be quite loose, both from the drum side and definitely the bass. And it's quite has that old school Moon Safari feel as well, with the acoustics and piano organ, not too busy and sort of warm. And he also, I think he compressed that track a bit more than some of the others, and it made a lot of sense for that one. So
interesting. I guess I can hear that now that you mentioned that. I wouldn't have thought that. That's cool. So I have to ask about Emma Come On. Is it really about Emma Stone, the actress?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's so funny. So did you write the words for that?
I did not. That was Petter.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny. I listened to it and I was like, I think this sounds like it's about Emma Stone, the actress. It is. I don't know. It's just it's kind of funny. And my wife, I was in the car at one point because, like I said, I was listening to it quite a bit, and I was like, "Hey, can you listen to this, honey, and tell me if you think this is about?" And she was like, "Yeah." She's like, "This is about Emma Stone, the actress." It's just such a cool idea. I don't think I've ever heard a prog rock song, or it's not really a prog rock song. I mean, it's more
exactly
like a rock song.
What is it? I don't know.
Yeah, but that's cool. Okay, I had to ask about that because that's definitely what it sounded like. So I want to talk about Teen Angel Meets the Apocalypse.
Yeah. Okay.
Man, what an incredible track. I mean, how is that track different for you than y'all's other epics like Other Half of the Sky or We Spin the World? Because it's very different in a lot of ways. Like, how did you think about that one compared to y'all's other sort of lengthy tracks?
Well, I mean, I was part of the process there, but that's mainly Petter and also Simon, and that's Petter's lyrics. But I can tell you what I think and what I sort of intuitively feel. I don't think it was. Well, Petter had the main theme for it, and also the verses that sort of set up the whole song. And then Simon had a bunch of demo stuff that we were sort of roaming through his ideas and found some of the heavier stuff that's in the middle. And then it's sometimes hard to know, if something else would have been chosen there in the middle, would the song have developed differently because we sort of incorporated different ideas, or who knows? But it turned out to be definitely the I think because we've done a lot of long songs that are quite they're not hard or not metal at all. They're filled with melody, and melody carries the whole thing through, and there's a lot of weaving of melodies, and there's a lot of orchestral stuff that sort of I don't know why this song turned out the way it did, really, because there's a lot of elements. It was not the demo didn't sound. I mean, the demo had the potential to be more hard rock or metal, but that sort of grew as well with the big difference for us was Mikael coming in, the way he plays his drums, the way he approaches things, the way he pushes other players to play a different way, try new things. So that was, I think, probably the main reason why it turned out harder, at least.
Yeah, it's
but
interesting.
The lyrics is the lyrics are great. I really like the lyrics. That
Me
was
too.
better, and they've changed. Some of the stuff has changed over the years. That's the weird thing. We have 3 or 4 different demos of every song, and the lyrics have changed over the years. We could have kept going for 10 more years, and it would have changed more.
Are you able to remember which ones are on the final album versus, like, do you know, or have you heard so many lyrics over the years that you get them mixed up?
Well, I think once the lyrics are changed and they're in the background when you're recording or whatever, you get used to the new lyrics and you sort of process that. But yeah, it's kind of been a confusing ride, this album.
Yeah, I bet.
Hard to pick up what is what.
Yeah. With a track like that, like Teen Angel Meets the Apocalypse, how much thought do y'all put into performing it live? Like, do you do things differently when you're recording it or writing it to make sure that you could perform it live, or do you just record it however you want to record it?
Yeah, we definitely record it the way we want to record it. I think we haven't, especially a song like that, we've never rehearsed it before we actually record it. Maybe individual players have played along to the track and try to get the right feel before you sit down and record it, but that was never played through as a band. So I think the songs that the older songs where you can hear that there was basically a jam going, not a jam, but you had a kind of a more natural feeling. It's something like Jasker's Farm or Moonwalk. That was also one of the songs that we actually rehearsed a lot before we went into the studio, and also most of the stuff on Adore the Summer.
Yeah.
So it's
that's interesting. Yeah, that in the way that this album turned out, in terms of, you've talked a little bit about the heaviness of it, and I think I've seen on Facebook and a few other places, maybe Simon and Petra talking a little bit about it. I personally think it's interesting because it sounds like Moon Safari. It sounds like y'all, but it is heavier in moments, but it never goes too far. It never goes into sounding like something different, or, I mean, it's unexpected at times, but it's within your sound.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's perfect in my opinion, because it's like you're doing something new and interesting, but it's not like you're doing a new type of music. So I think people are really, really going to like it, just because it is so. I mean, even Teen Angel Meets the Apocalypse, so often you keep going back to the strong melodies and the harmonies and the layered vocals, and so you have these heavy moments, but then you also it just the whole song sounds like Moon Safari. So it's like the perfect balance, in my opinion, at least.
Oh, that's great. And I think that was getting that balance right was not totally easy at times.
I bet.
It was kind of easy to get too excited about playing it heavy, just getting everything heavy, just bass guitar and drums, just pushing that. And then during the mixes, we had sort of, and the final touch-ups on that song, we sort of have to pull that back and try to see where the melodies, are they still strong enough everywhere to carry this song, or are we just sort of pushing, because you get so excited by the energy of the low end or the metal parts.
Right. Oh, that's
so
interesting.
That's been a tension mainly with that song, because it's also so long. So you don't want to get caught in. I think what some other prog bands do is when they don't know. Personally, I think they can sometimes lack in that awareness of where the song is going sometimes, and I really don't like, and we've always been meticulous about, getting the right energy to work through a song, not to have it die down and then 3 minutes later you sort of makes sense again. We don't like that, but I think we're all really good listeners of music and we really know what we like. So we never let that stuff through, but it's been
that makes sense hearing that, because the song, the flow to it, it doesn't do any of the bad things you're describing. It doesn't get super low energy and then later on completely change in some unexpected way. It has a flow that it's really, really quite good. So I want to ask about the epilogue. I think it's super cool that y'all decided that you were going to do the entire thing in Swedish. And I want to say someone, maybe you or maybe Simon had said this online at some point, so it's not a total surprise for people that have kind of followed y'all online. So as an American, I have absolutely no idea what y'all are saying or what y'all are talking about, but it's still beautiful, and I'm so happy that y'all put it on the album. Was the plan always to have a track or close with a track in Swedish, or did y'all kind of debate about how to do that?
No, that sort of came up when Petter and Simon. There was actually I don't want to call it a competition, but there was a sort of a period where you could add new hymns to the Swedish psalm book or the hymn book. And I think Petter talked to Simon about, hey, we should write a hymn. He was probably thinking about putting that should be on the album as well, but it started like that. And Simon was supposed to write up the arrangement and send it in before a deadline date to try to get it accepted, because it would have been a fun thing, also promotionally, I think, to get it into hymn book, having people sing it. But it was probably just time to do one in Swedish. And also it's like, if this is the ending of the ending, it makes sense to do a little something in Swedish just to sort of break things off. This album, I don't know, it definitely represents the ending of our. I mean, I said once that it's like the final reckoning with the child inside our collective mind, which sounds pretentious, but in a way it is. It's sort of like, and also we will sort of allowing our kids' stories to take center stage in the storytelling. Basically, there's a lot of that now. You can sort of tell that it's not really as much about us, or that we've accepted that we're not the center of the universe anymore, and that it's moving on. So that's a perfect little final nugget or final encapsulation of that feeling we had, as kids growing up, going off on summer break. That feeling you get there, and there was sort of. Yeah, you should learn Swedish so that you can appreciate the lyrics. They're really good.
Yeah, I do need to. It's interesting.
Next slide.
Yeah, that lyrical theme you're talking about in terms of your children and passing things on to your children, I heard that a lot in Teen Angel Meets the Apocalypse, because there's a lot of sort of discussing dealing with kids and leading your children underground and teaching them, and so that's interesting that you say that, because I kind of heard that a lot in that album. Would you mind summarizing the theme of what the epilogue is about? I mean, you don't have to translate it, but what in general are the lyrics about there?
Oh, it's basically a very romantic. How do I can't even recite it in my head right now. Oh, it's also very poetic. The language in Swedish is very poetic as well. So it's really, connects with a tradition of Swedish poetry, I think, from a different time. Can't really say what it's about, but you also have you should ask Petter this question, because he's got all the lyrics in his head, for that one.
No worries.
It connects back to kids. I mean, both the theme is a variation of kids, and there's a part of it that comes back from. Yeah. So. Well, no, I can't really say exactly.
No problem. I was kind of hoping in the liner notes when the actual album released, maybe there would be a translation in there, but if not.
Yeah, well, Petter made a translation for the Japanese version, because they want to. So we had a lyric in Swedish that we translated to English, then it's going to be translated to Japanese. So it's like.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah.
How much of the original
meaning is lost?
Who knows? Yeah. But it doesn't matter.
So with the short time we have left here, I'd like to go and ask a few really specific questions about some of y'all's older albums, and maybe some of the things, because I know the tracks that you've, or at least I'm pretty familiar with the tracks you've written on some of the older albums, and so just a few questions here and there. I recall after you completed Lover's End, after y'all finished the album, you had mentioned that there was a lot of ideas kind of left on the table that didn't make it onto the album. I think I read in an interview where you said there was just a lot that y'all had. Are those ideas what turned into the EP, part 3?
Well, that was, I don't know, I think it was a 17-minute version of that song. Or if that, I think so. Or if, I don't even know.
It was 24 minutes. Yeah, the EP was 24 minutes.
Yeah, it's 24 minutes in the finished version. I was thinking about what we had when we were working on Lover's End. There was a shorter version of it. And I think the decision was made to leave it off just because it wasn't a finished song either. And I don't think at that point, we really wanted to get it out for 2010 fall. And also Across the Rubicon is a great ending for that first one. It's a shorter album, but still enough of an album with a Kid Called Panic and, Heartland and everything. So that wasn't the hindrance for that album, but it makes sense now to add it. When we do a vinyl release, it's going to be on Lover's End.
Oh, awesome.
Sort of. So it's going to be part of the same release going forward.
From a lyrical, that's awesome. From a lyrical standpoint, I always thought it was interesting that the album kind of ends with I guess I'll call him the main character, sort of saying, one day I'm going to be over. I'm going to be over this breakup. I'm going to be over this. And then part 3 starts up, the EP. I remember listening to it, and he's not over it. He's in the same miserable place that he's always been in. He still lives in the same town. And so then part 3 kind of goes, and he kind of goes through, you wrote him to kind of go through some of the same emotions of, I'm going to get over this. But I just thought it was very poetic that you ended Lover's End with him wanting to get over it. But then, just like real life, as it so often happens, it didn't work out that way. And part 3 starts up, and he's kind of in the same place that he's been in. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. Well, again, that was Petter. I wrote some of the stuff on the Skellefteå Serenade, where I probably introduced the character Rubber Feet for the verses.
Yeah, so that's funny you mentioned that.
He was a hobo. I don't know if that's the correct translation. He was collecting a lot of. Yeah, he was a hobo. He was collecting cans. He was bicycling around. He had really old, tatty clothes on, and he's on. Is he on the cover as well somewhere, or he was on a tour T-shirt? We found an old picture of it, but he was living in the mountain village, or where Heaven Hill is, and that he was sort of living on the last house in that village, sort of overgrown lawn and junk everywhere, and that kind of character. So we sort of used him as this is where we could be going, kind of thing. To just add another element to the song. There was about that love story, but also about the friendships and about what this town does to you and all those.
I'm glad you brought that up, because actually that was one of my questions, was about Rubber Feet, because I wasn't sure who I wasn't sure who that was, or if it was a Swedish phrase. So that's cool that you explained that, because in the lyrics at multiple points you say, like, we all could be rubber feet, or we're all rubber feet in a sense. And so that makes sense that's what it is. That's cool. I wouldn't have ever thought about that.
He died 20 years ago, something, 15 at least. We're probably 20 now. He's probably proud of us, even though he never knew us, but we saw him a lot walking around. He was everywhere. Everyone knew him, but no one really talked to him. It's kind of that kind of interesting character. Every town has one.
Yeah, even America is the same way.
Yeah.
So your first album, A Doorway to Summer, I've seen 2 covers floating around. There's like the white cover and there's the blue cover. What's the difference between those 2?
Well, we did the white cover was, I think, Petter had painted something that didn't have colors, and we were friends with Black Bonzo back then. We shared a rehearsal room. I don't know if you've listened to Black Bonzo at all.
No, but I've heard of Black Bonzo, but no, I haven't listened to them before.
They were a really great band, and Mikael Israelsson played the drums with them. So
that's right.
We shared a rehearsal room with them, and so we sort of did everything together back then, 2004, 2005, up until maybe 2007. anyway, Niklas Åhlund, the keyboard player there, he sort of drew it up. We basically, I think we chose the background color because it looked a bit like Trick of the Tail.
Yeah, Genesis. Yeah, that's cool.
It's a lot of naive and childish stuff in that the booklet as well, that we sort of really lean into that, and it's also quite beautiful because it shows what we wanted to do. I think so that we wanted to belong to that type of band. We really was that way an homage. Then the blue one, Peter painted it oil on canvas around 2012 or whatever, when we did the re-release, because we released all of them in Japan.
Right.
So we figured this is the time to put a new cover on it, but it doesn't really have a certain meaning more than probably that's maybe the original idea in terms of the colors.
That's cool. Okay, so it was the re-release. Interesting. I thought that might be the case.
Yeah.
I'd also read that there were 2 songs that got cut from that album. I think Petra had called them "Lovely Rain" and "The Pillow Express." Do you remember these?
Yeah, of course. They were Pillow Express was written by Anton Johansson, our first guitarist. That was one of the first demos that we worked on. So in 2003, when Tomias Bodin came up from Uppsala and he mixed the first demo, that demo I think at that stage we had both the Lovely Rain, which is basically a 10cc super trampy shorter song with a lot of fun in it. It's a really good song. I think, well, who knows, at this point if we'll ever do it or use parts of it or whatever, but there's a shorter poppy one, and Pillow Express was also that. And then when we got around to the album, we sort of found that we had, Doorway, Dance Across the Ocean, Sunny Your Own, We Spin the World, Beyond the Door. Bodin felt that made some more sense as an album to leave those out, and sort of gave us a clear direction to an audience. There was no confusion about what we were as a band either. And I think that made sense. It's probably the right decision. I don't think they don't carry as much weight as those songs that we actually included either. So it's. But I said in another interview that we could potentially have gone a different way. Suppose we would have ended up talking to someone else who became sort of our mentor into the genre. Maybe we would have chosen to focus on different aspects of those early tracks.
Someone other than Thomas Bodin?
Yeah. Or maybe if we would have gotten together 3 years earlier, maybe we would have listened to different stuff and would have shaped us in a totally different way. It's kind of weird. The small things that sort of brings you 20 years later to what the kind of music you're making and what you're thinking.
I'm glad it turned out the way it did, but
good.
And at some point y'all should, it might be cool to, I've loved what y'all have done on Bandcamp. A lot of bands don't use Bandcamp, and I love just being able to go on there and download the really high quality versions. At some point y'all maybe should consider wrapping up a bunch of those demos, and because you could sell it on there. I'd buy it.
We were thinking about that. But it was actually, that was, if you want to hear it, I'm just thinking about, most bands who have a label that they're signed to, they can put their own music up on Bandcamp, I suppose, because that will be, they're not the ones in charge of that selling of it.
Yep.
So that's kind of good that we have that option.
Yeah, that's rare.
We went to a couple of labels and tried to get signed for this one, because we felt like if we want to, we don't really have time to do all the stuff that we have to release it on our own, just blah blah blah. But now we're doing it anyway, so apparently we do have time. But they weren't interested, some of the bigger prog labels, and I hope that this album will do so well, even though we're not on a bigger label, that they will have wished they signed us. Who knows?
Me too.
But I think judging from a lot of the reactions early on, it's hopefully it's going to do really well, because we have to. It has to do well, also, which is the boring part, but economically, because we spent pretty much everything we've ever gotten in during these last 8 years or 9 years has been put into this. So it's quite an investment. Hopefully, the most important thing is, of course, not the money, but we have to get the money back to be able to make another album to
Absolutely.
the same level, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's just how it works. Yeah, I hope it. I think it's going to do well. I mean, but like I said, I've listened to it quite a lot, and I love it, and I've listened to all y'all's stuff. I mean, yeah, and I think it has a lot of things on there that are amongst the best things y'all have ever written. So actually, speaking of the best things y'all have ever written, so am I correct? Did you wrote Bluebells, both the music and the words?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I think Bluebells is a masterpiece. I think for me personally, I'm serious. I think it might be one of my favorite pieces of music ever. And I've spent thousands of hours listening to Yes and Genesis. I grew up listening to Yes and Rush, and then as I've gotten older, Genesis. But I think what you wrote with Bluebells and the way the band performs it on the album, I think is just nothing short of. Yeah, it's a masterpiece. I think it's one of the best pieces of music I personally have ever heard. I think it's incredible.
Well, that's quite amazing. Thank you very much. That was, I mean, like every song, it's also a band effort. I wrote the basic song, and all the lyrical bits are from me, but the way it's like the way the album, the way the song starts, do 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 do, and the piano stuff in that intro, that was Simon. And then also that big to do a big breakdown with all the vocals leading up to the final part, that was
awesome.
Also Simon's arrangement, Simon's input there. So there's never any just song where just one person's done something and it's totally finished. But nice of you to say. That was kind of the first track that I got into Moonsfire as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things I think that people will like about the new album is there's a lot of very sort of classic Moon Safari moments throughout this whole album, in between y'all trying some sort of newer stuff. And so I think that it's a good mix. It's a mix of the things that people like all across the entire album. I mean, there's so many, even with A Lifetime to Learn How to Love, there's this huge buildup to this just incredible sort of mid-song climax that's just exactly what y'all do perfectly and that no one else really seems to be able to do. And so there's all those moments throughout the album that I think are really, really good, that I think people are going to like. And then there's also the heavier stuff and the new stuff. So in my opinion, yeah, the new album is it's just the perfect mix of sort of new and classic sort of old stuff that everyone loves y'all for.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I think that I kind of agree. It has enough of the old stuff, the good old stuff that we don't want to lose, but also has that edge of something new and a different approach, which just makes it a lot interesting. And I think we've done the best lyrics, totally, I would say, is this album. It makes most sense to us. And also as 9 tracks, they're totally different, yet somehow connected. And they feel different, but they're somehow, I don't know. It just turned out to be a good, because we didn't listen to the songs in a row until August. That's when we got the master. So we had an idea of how to segue between maybe Blood Moon, Beyond the Blue and Blood Moon, for instance. I always knew I wanted to segue between those things, but the way they will fit together totally, I don't think, because we didn't have the finished mixes we didn't have any way to check what it would sound like together. But it seems like it's making a lot of sense.
It does to me. I mean, it flows. Yeah, the flow is perfect. I mean, it's really, really good. Okay, I have one last question, and then I'll let you run. I really appreciate all the time you've given me here.
No, if you want to go 10 more minutes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have anything?
Yeah, I've got a ton of stuff, but yeah, I won't keep you too much longer. So I definitely have to ask, because I know people are going to want to know whether or not y'all have discussed playing any live shows or any type of tour in support of the album. Has that been brought up at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we said, what we've all felt, was that probably this album, hopefully it will do well. Hopefully it'll get more attention than our previous stuff. And so we felt like we wanted to see what happens and see what kind of connections we can make with the new music and see what kind of deals we would get going out maybe in the fall, like, to do some shows around Europe, or we'll see what happens. But we do have, in May, we are going to Norway, and we also have a trip that's not announced yet, but we're going to do 3 or 4 more shows then. Not in Europe though, so we'll see. It's really to be determined. We have to it's sort of focused on get the album out, then we'll see. That's right. Had we been a pro band, of course we would have booked a tour for January, February, or March already, and we would have gone out. But I think this is a fun little story. I remember in 2013 when we were touring around Europe, 2 days before us in a famous venue, Spirit of 66 in Belgium, there was Haken had played.
Yeah.
And I remember they had 14 people in the audience.
Oh my gosh.
And this was maybe 6 months. They released that album. Is it The Mountain?
Yeah, The Mountain came out in 2013.
Yeah, The Mountain came out in 2013. They just come out. And I think 6 months later or something, it sort of blew up and they became a big band and sort of got them to a totally different level. But at that point, they were touring around the same time as us with just a few people in the audience. It was kind of, I always think back to that. And if the music can take you somewhere else, it's kind of, it takes a while in the prog genre, especially if you're not going off from a big label promoting something. If you're doing it on your own, you sort of have to let it grow organically until you know how big is your actual audience.
That's a great example. That's interesting. I wouldn't have imagined that Haken in Europe would have
14 people. No,
that's crazy. But I mean, it makes sense that y'all caught them right before, The Mountain kind of blew up. I'm going to Japan in January, and I'd kind of been I know that whenever y'all release something, y'all have the Japanese label always wants extra content, sort of. And I have a few of y'all's Japanese releases, and I've been in Japan before and seen y'all's albums for sale in record shops.
That's great.
Which is so cool.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, because there's really not record stores in America like how there used to be, but you can go to Japan and find Moon Safari albums as you're just flipping through. And so isn't that interesting? Yeah, it's very different from America.
It's been one of those. That time, the first time we went to Japan was in 2013, early 2013, and it was supposed to be Änglagård, Anekdoten, the Flower Kings, and then Moon Safari, which is, for us, it was like, why are we one of those 4 bands that are going to be representing the Swedish music in Japan? It was kind of weird. It was sort of got us to a different level, and the audience was just like, they knew every word and they were sort of so committed. Awesome. So that's just also that going into a record store there and you're finding your stuff, or people actually stop us in the street in Shibuya Crossing and say, "Are we playing tonight?" Or
that's awesome. In the scramble right there in the big sort of times, the Shibuya scramble, the big Times Square area. That's cool.
Yeah, in 2017 we actually filmed a lot of stuff there. That's coming out on as a music video for the next song. I'm not going to say which it is. I don't even know if it matters, but it's probably going to be another single in 1.5 weeks or something like that.
And y'all filmed it in the scramble right there in the middle of Shibuya?
Yeah. So we sort of, when it was a red light, we sort of, everyone stand still, and then we sort of ran out first, and the guy that was filming us sort of filmed around us and try to find different landmarks around Shibuya or where we were there.
That's awesome. Yeah. Like I said, I was going in January, so I knew it was unlikely, but I'd kind of hoping, I was kind of like, maybe the stars will align. But that is great that y'all are sort of discussing in the future. And that it makes sense what you said, that when the album comes out and hopefully it does really well, and then the promoters will want to ask y'all to come play places. So I hope that ends up being the case.
Yeah, for sure. We're going back to Japan. We're not in January though. I'm sorry.
No problem. Yeah, maybe I'll fly over there and see y'all anyway. Whenever you go. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I would love to see you.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, the last thing is so you did quite a bit of the lyrics for Himlabacken Volume 1. I mean, Diamonds, which is awesome. And Sugar Band. I wanted to ask about Diamonds. Was that purely sort of a fictional? Because I remember with New York Summer Girl, you had said, "Oh, it was just a fictional woman that I kind of made up." Is that kind of the same case with Diamonds, where it was sort of this poetic sort of story that you came up with, or was there anything based on relatives?
No, that's actually based on relatives.
Wow.
In Sweden, we call it. I have an aunt who, when she was like 15, 16, started working as a, I don't know if we call it piga in Swedish. It was like a maid, or no, not maid, but she was working at a household that was on a farm. And
like
the guy,
like a hired hand.
Yeah, hired hand. Yeah, and the son in the family, she ended up marrying him. So I call him my uncle, even though it's not my uncle. It's my aunt's husband. But they were sort of living. They were living a different life, like they were from a different time. They were. He was a potato farmer, and that's all he loved. He looked at those potatoes like they were his kids, you know. And I grew up planting potatoes in the back of a tractor with my cousins, and I remember all those moments, because it was also around early June when the summer is coming to Sweden. You get out of school, and then you have that few days of planting potatoes with my cousins and with my uncle and my aunt there, and those great memories. They were their farm was from the 16th century or something. The oldest house from the 18th century, which is quite old as well.
Wow!
So it was a really ancient place. You could sort of feel that it was old. The way they were living was old. Sort of time capsule. It was just a lovely place.
That's super cool. Yeah, that's cool to know that.
So the diamonds are actually potatoes.
Wow.
That's the way it started. And then I weaved in, shine on you crazy diamond, kind of Sid Barrett thing, doing the last verse.
Yeah.
Just to try to use the phrase more, and also, yeah, that was actually a personal song. I don't really write too many of those. It's more, I don't know why. Sometimes, but that one really made sense. To celebrate their lives, and since they both died as well, so that's sort of part of my world as an upbringing is sort of gone.
Well, that's one of my favorite tracks on that album. And then Kids at the beginning, which I know you did the words and the music for as well. Anyway, yeah, your work on that album, the whole band's work on that album is awesome. I've listened to that album just so much over the last 10 years. And so it's just great to be able to listen to part 2 now and hear a lot of the themes kind of connected across. So anyway, yeah, hey, Johan, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for spending so much time. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, problem. I love the album. I love all of y'all's work. I'm super excited for more people to hear it. And I really do hope the album sells just incredibly well. And y'all are able to tour and keep doing this, because your music is awesome.
Thank you very much. And we hope to see you sometime in future.
For sure. All right, Johan, thanks so much.
Thank you. See you.